You know, some deals seem perfectly fine on the surface, but they're born with a secret, a hidden flaw. Today, we're going to trace the entire life story of one of these shaky agreements, the voidable contract. It's a fascinating journey of a promise that can either be fixed up or completely torn down. Let's get into it. So, here's the big question, right? How can something be totally valid and binding 1 minute, but then poof, it's gone the next? It sounds kind of weird, but this is the reality for voidable contracts. It's like one person in the deal is holding a secret veto power, and we're going to find out how that works. All right, let's start at the very beginning, the birth of this shaky agreement. Now, this isn't a contract that's, dead on arrival. Oh no, it's born alive and kicking. But it's got this vulnerability from day one, a sort of pre-existing condition that makes its whole future totally uncertain. And here's what the books say. A voidable contract is, for all intents and purposes, valid when it's made. The key thing to remember is that it stays valid unless, and only unless, someone takes it to court to have it annulled. So it just kind of hangs out in this state of suspense, waiting for a decision. So where does this weakness even come from? Well, it all boils down to one thing, a problem with consent right at the moment of creation. There are basically two kinds of birth defects. Either one person was legally incapable of agreeing in the first place, think of a minor, or the other person's yes wasn't genuine because it was obtained through some shady means. So what does it mean for consent to be vitiated? It's a fancy way of saying that the I agree wasn't a real free choice. It was tainted. And the law recognizes 5 specific ways this can happen. A genuine mistake, actual violence, threats and intimidation, someone having undue influence over you, or just plain old fraud. Okay, so we have our vulnerable contract. This brings us to the next phase of its life, the ticking clock. See, the power to just blow up this contract, it doesn't last forever. There's a very strict deadline. And that deadline is 4 years. That's the window. The injured party has exactly 4 years to go to court and get the contract annulled. If they miss that window, well, the opportunity is gone for good. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. That 4-year clock doesn't always start the day the contract is signed. Get this, if there was intimidation, the clock only starts ticking when the threats stop. If there was fraud, it starts when you discover the fraud. And for a minor, the clock starts on their 18th birthday. The bottom line is, the countdown begins only when the person is finally free, safe, and aware of what happened. So our shaky contract has reached a fork in the road. It can either be demolished or it can be saved. Let's talk about the path to saving it first. This involves a really powerful action called ratification. Ratification is basically the cure. It's the moment when the injured party, knowing full well about the defect, decides to accept the contract anyway. This one act cleanses the deal of its original flaw, turning it from vulnerable into rock solid. And there are 2 ways to do this. Express ratification is easy. You just say it or write it down. Yep, I'm good with that deal I made. But tacit ratification is way more subtle. It's all about your actions. If that minor turns 18 and keeps accepting payments for the thing they sold, their actions are basically screaming, I accept this deal, even if they never say a word. That's tacit ratification. And this leads to a huge consequence. Once you ratify a contract, that's it. Game over. Your right to go to court and cancel the whole thing is gone. It's completely extinguished. Forever. You've made your choice, and the deal is now 100% valid. So think of it this way. Before any choice is made, the contract exists in this flawed, defective state. It's alive, sure, but it's not healthy. It's vulnerable. But then, after ratification, something pretty cool happens. The law basically time travels. It treats the contract as if it was perfectly valid from the very beginning. That's the retroactive effect. The cure doesn't just fix it for the future, it completely erases the defect from the past. It's like it never happened. But what if the injured party doesn't want to fix the contract? What if they want to tear it all down? Well, that brings us to the other path at that fork in the road, taking action to annul it. So who gets to pull the plug? This is really important. The rule is simple. Only the victim can ask for an annulment. The capable adult who made a deal with a minor? Nope, they can't cancel it. The person who committed the fraud? No way they can use their own bad act to get out of the deal. The power lies only with the injured party. But there's a catch, a big one. This power isn't absolute. If you're the injured party and you have the right to annul, but then you lose the thing you received, let's say through your own fault or carelessness, you also lose your right to cancel. The law basically says, hey, you can't wreck the thing and then complain that the deal was bad. Okay, so let's imagine the injured party goes to court and wins. The contract is officially annulled. What happens now? Well, this is the final chapter. The cleanup crew comes in, and the mission is to undo everything. The main principle here is something called mutual restitution. That's just a fancy legal term for everybody gives everything back. The goal is to hit a giant reset button, to put both people back in the exact same spot they were in before the contract ever existed. So you give back the thing plus any profit it made, and I give back the money plus any interest. But there's a special protection for minors or other people who lack capacity. They only have to return the portion of what they received that actually benefited them. So in this example, if a minor gets 100,000 pesos but, wastes 80,000 of it on useless stuff, they're only on the hook for the 20,000 that's left over or that they actually benefited from.
And finally, this whole giving stuff back thing is a two-way street. The law won't make one person give back what they got until the other person is also ready to do the same. You can't demand the car back if you're not ready to hand over the cash. It's just a simple rule of fairness. No return, no return.
And that brings us to the end of the story. A voidable contract lives this really fragile life, It's valid, but it's always got this cloud of doubt hanging over it, right up until that 4-year clock runs out or a final choice is made. And it leaves us with one last question to think about. Is a deal that can be wiped out by one person's choice ever truly a safe bet?